Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about the purpose of assessments. There's many reasons why we might assess students. We're doing assessments from home, really looking to identify our students at grade level standards. Are they seeing mastery in those? Are they mastering the content being taught? Give assessments to use towards grades in the class. Really, we're after what areas do we need to provide more instruction or possibly more support for your students?
So depending on the age of your student, they may be taking an assessment with the teacher, or they may be taking the assessment on their own at home. So especially for our younger students, our students in grades kindergarten through 2, this may be done during class time, during their synchronous time. And the teacher might be facilitating the assessment. It just makes it easier, especially since it could involve reading, and then the teacher will read the questions for the child or a reading passage, and then the students can go ahead and answer the questions. The teacher may be having the student take the assessment if they're in kindergarten through 2nd grade individually, or there may be a group of students there. They're going to submit their answers, and so it doesn't matter if there's other students there, as long as they're not saying their answer out loud. And it depends on the assessment as well. Some of the elementary assessments need to be done one-on-one, but many of them can be done in small group instruction. Now, for your older students in grades 3 through 12, we've transitioned them to taking assessments online. So we'd like them to be administered asynchronously, which means not with the teacher and not during their class time, because we want to make sure that the teacher is utilizing that class time for instruction, not taking a test. It could be done individually, but maybe not. Maybe it can be a group test. It depends on the teacher and what they want to glean from this assessment. And it will be administered electronically. So using that Chromebook that was issued to them through one of our platforms that we offer.
So what are ways that you can help your student with taking this assessment from home? One of the key things is finding a quiet place for your child to take the test. If they're in a room with siblings or with TV noise or other things, it's going to be hard for them to concentrate on that test. So if there's a quiet place they can go, that would be great. Got headphones that they can wear to limit outside noise. There are some of the best questions have items that are read to the student, or they may listen to a passage and have to answer questions about that. Having headphones so they can focus on those items is helpful. Away cell phones when they're taking the test. They should not be using cell phones to look up answers, using a computer to look up answers. We're trying to, with our tests, really find out what the students know and don't know and what they need support on. So if they're looking up answers, really don't know how much they truly know, and they can use a phone to find them. Things you can do to help them is log on to the test if needed. For younger students, we know have needed help getting into Zoom sessions basis, and so you can help your student get onto the test. Help them with other technology needs if they need it. Depending on the test, they might have to submit some evidence of work through the Google Classroom. If you can assist them with transferring that work over to Google Classroom if needed, but we really want the students to take the test on their own. Help them with answers. If they're struggling with how to answer a question, have them reach out to their teacher, and their teacher can try to help them with that, but we want to know what the students know.
So there are some things that the students can do to help themselves. And one of them is to make sure that they keep the test fair for all students. So we're asking the students, and you'll see some student protocols. There'll be some, we'll show you some student protocols and some parent protocols and some teacher protocols as well. So we're going to ask the students to not let their siblings or parents or grandparents or other family members or friends help them take the test. It's important that they show their own work and show what they know. We really don't want them to talk about the test questions to their friends or siblings, because students may not all be taking the assessment at the exact same time. So again, to keep the test fair, we need to make sure that we're not talking about the test. We want them to always do their best, no matter whether they're taking the test in class or online. And we want them to know that it's really okay if they don't know all the answers. That's information for their teacher, and that means their teacher can do some reteaching or help them so that they can master whatever standards they are falling short on or have gaps with. It's important that the student shows their understanding of the information.
So what you can expect from your teacher with testing from home, they will communicate with your student the date and time they expect to complete the testing. That could be over multiple days, depending on the age of the student and the length of the test. You may allow multiple times, multiple days to be able to complete the assessment. It may not need to be done in one sitting. Communicate expectations around the test. The same things we've talked with you tonight about expectations for parents and students to complete the testing. The teacher should be discussing that with the students. And once testing is done, they should discuss the results of the test with the students. So they may or may not use them in the grade for the student, but they should go over results of the test to support the students with areas that they miss questions on, and discuss what the right answer is for that. Why did they mark this choice over that choice? Really kind of identify ways so they can help support the student with instruction as they continue on with the rest of the year.
And also to let that child know where their strengths are, right? You did really well in this area, and you should be very proud of that. So it's about determining that child's strengths and weaknesses when it comes to the content that was taught. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over some protocols that we developed and have shared out with staff, and so we'd like to just review those a little bit with you. These are posted on our assessment and accountability website for you to reference, the public page, so that you're welcome to go back and look them over.
So Ms. Lofgren, do you want to click on each of them, or starting with the teacher, with the student, the parent?
Let's start with the parent. So this is a letter that will go out to parents and guardians, and then so it basically gives you some information. I'm going to look at the bigger screen that doesn't have the camera on it, so pardon my profile view. So really talks about what the purpose of the assessments are, and letting parents know what they can assist their child with. Basically, quite a few of the things that we've already gone over with you. Finding that quiet location. I know that my house is very busy with my own child who's in college and my husband who's teaching from home. So, but trying to find that quiet place can sometimes be difficult. Again, all about keeping that test fair for all the students, and then and not recording the test or taking pictures of the test. That's important with a lot of our tests because we use them over and over again. And again, it's about your child showing the teacher what they know and what they may not know and what they might need some more help with. And it's important for parents to let their child complete the test without any help from them. There are some board policies around, I don't want to say cheating, but it could be cheating. So if your child is looking on their phone for answers, there are board policies around that, and discipline action could take place. So we just, again, want to make sure that we have, we keep the test fair and that the child is really showing what they know. So Alberto, why don't you go to the student protocols next? So
Do you see? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm just checking in if you see it.
Yeah, I see it. So again, students could be taking they are right now, our middle and high school students are taking their Q1 assessments. So we're really asking for them to take the test on their own. Their parents can help them set up the technology, but I will bet that with most of our middle and high school students, they already know how to set it up and probably would be helping their younger siblings when it comes time for them to take the test, or their parents if they're trying to get online. So setting up the technology is probably not difficult for our middle and high school students. And again, wanting to make sure that we're keeping that test fair for the other students in the class. So they shouldn't be sharing their information or the test with anybody else, and don't allow brothers and sisters or friends to help you with the test. Making sure that they're communicating with the teachers so that they know when the test will be administered, and if there's any questions or concerns they have, how can they get a hold of that teacher? Or if it's a younger student in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, how can the parent get a hold of the teacher to help support that child in taking that test? And again, reminding students that there are consequences if they choose to be dishonest when taking the test. So that's really important. Okay. And I think the last one is the teacher one, Roberto. Roberto, that's the parent guardian one. We did that one already. And Chris, you want to take this one?
Sure. So teachers are get a bit more technical because we're giving specific directions to them. Similar reminders that we've given. We've got separate directions for them depending on the assessment they're given. We're asking that they schedule it during that asynchronous time so that they really hope to preserve that time live with the students in Zoom sessions for instructions. Are letting them know that for some of those younger grades, they may need to schedule it during. It's just because some of those become one-on-one. They should still have they should still be delivering live instruction every day with kids. They might, during the assessment window, may have some shorter times live instruction so they can deliver and get everybody through the test. A classroom of 24, 30 plus students. It's a lot to do one-on-one testing, and so we want to allow them some flexibility with instruction to get that done. We're asking that they open it within a specific window. Can help with the students that might be inclined to try and cheat if they can limit time frame that test is open. If I only open it from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, might only have an hour to work on it, and so they're hopefully less inclined to try to spend most of that time looking up answers and complete the work on their own. And then just other general reminders for teachers. We've got general standard assessment protocols that we apply to assessments, as far as providing support for students, what students can and can't do, that's what teachers can and can't do. There's also a reminder of the board policy for them. And that if the students are failing to complete the test at repeated reminders, the teacher could schedule to do that during live instruction using breakout rooms. And if they've got any questions, we ask them to go through their administrator, and their administrators would direct those questions to myself or Laura if need be. I think we can go back to the presentation here, Roberto.
Mhm. And so here's some general, before we get to your questions, because I will bet that you have many. So basically, there's just some basic tips for you that we'd like you to be thinking about. Just continue that communication with your child's teacher. And if you have any questions about assessments or really anything, please feel free to email them, or if there's ways that you can communicate with them. The email is probably the best way for right now, and they will get back to you. It's important that you and the teacher and your child, your student, have that three-way communication to make sure that everything is clear, you know what's going on, and your child also knows what's going on. It's important for them to know that it's important for them to know that you know what's going on. It helps to keep them accountable. So the other ways that you could support your child, just find out, ask them, what are they doing in their class? What's their classwork like? What are their assignments? We know that there's quite a few asynchronous assignments that are electronic. For example, iReady, the SWAN Beyond the Basic Facts, and then other asynchronous work that they need to do. Ask them, what are they learning? Maybe even have them teach you what they learned in class last week. And then again, making sure that you're communicating with your child's teacher. It's really important that we keep those lines of communication open. So if you have questions, we are available to answer them. We have some time.
There's a question that was asked in our registration. They had posed as far as how much parent involvement is needed or presence is needed during this test when students are taking the assessments.
I think it depends on the child, right? If the child needs you to be there to monitor that they're completing the test, then I would say checking in on them, but sitting with them and making sure that they're taking the test. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do that in a regular classroom. The teacher would be walking around monitoring and then prompting that child to, hey, don't forget, let's do, you got to do question number 2. So I think checking on them and making sure that they're working through it. Again, helping them get set up, that's fine. And then making sure that they did complete the test. But that's really about all a parent should need to do. Would you agree with that, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. Make sure they get on and they're completing it, check in with them occasionally, help them if they're having a technical issue, but you should not be sitting with them, making sure they're answering questions. Don't give them hints if they got it right or wrong. Let them answer on their own. The teacher will work with them on things that they had missed or congratulate them on things they got right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Chris. Trying to keep that poker face. Yay, you got it right. Or, oh, are you sure about that answer? You may want to go back and check with it. And that's hard to do as a parent because we know we want what's best for our kids and we want them to do well. But again, the more information we give the students about whether they got the question right or wrong, then that doesn't help the teacher know what they need more support with or what they know really well. That's a very good point, Chris. And it's especially hard with the littler ones, right? Because they're sitting in front of their screen with their teacher, and we want them to do well. But it's important for the teacher to assess how the child is doing.
One of the questions that was posed in the Q&A was as far as when would the assessments start? I know you mentioned before that some of them have already started. So could you give a little details as far as how would the assessments look like? Is it different depending for each grade level? Yeah.
Sure. So assessments, Laura, I mentioned earlier, assessments have started for our middle school and high school students. Those ones will be mostly ELA and math assessments. Those grade levels, they're going to take them online sometime over the next 3 weeks for most of the test. 7th and 8th grade math may be a little bit later on in November, just to follow with the pacing for the SWAN curriculum. When the students take those tests, they'll see a variety of questions online. They may have multiple choice or short response answers where they have to type in a response. It'll ask them a question and they have to actually type in a response for it. They don't get a select from a list of choices. We try to make the test look similar to the Smarter Balance test that they will take in the spring. For the younger students, our K-6 students, most of their tests will start late October and go through the first few weeks of November, right before the kind of the trimester is ending and wrapping up, so that they can use the teachers can use that information on the report cards. Again, those will be ELA and math, similar to what we talked about for the middle schools. When we look at some of the kindergarten students, some of those one-on-one assessments might be doing things like identifying letters, uppercase, lowercase, identifying numbers in math, more basic things that they do one-on-one with the teacher. They may see some multiple choice questions or some open-ended responses where they're typing or writing out their response.
For some of our students too, it could involve some writing of essays. And for the older students, they will submit their written essays online. And for the younger students, they'll write it out on a piece of paper and then their teacher will tell them how to submit it. It may be that they take a picture of it and then can submit it through Google Classroom. And of course, depending on the age of the student, depends on how much writing they're going to be submitting.
One of the questions that was posed is, for many of our families, how do we keep or work with our child or with our students so they don't rush through the exam, or making sure that they take time to respond to the questions? What would be some suggestions you would both share with our families?
That's a good question, because a lot of teachers ask that same question because they know students just want to get through the test and not really take time to think about it. I think providing some incentives, thinking about how many questions are on the test, and then saying, all right, this is how much time you have to complete the test. Look at this. If it's a math problem, you want to make sure that they're taking at least a couple of minutes, and they should be showing their work, especially in math. So making sure that they have some scratch paper. And if you see that they just clicked the answer and you don't see any work on the scratch paper, making sure that they go back and, no, you got to solve the problem. Even if they got it right, they should be still solving the problem and showing their work, because that's how they can submit that then to the teacher, and then the teacher can then decide if there are errors, where those errors are, maybe they missed carrying or borrowing or crossing out and all that fun stuff, or maybe something even more elaborate, algebraic, where they missed a step and they should have solved the problem that way. So it's important for them to, it is important for them to take their time and and answer the questions thoroughly. And then asking them, did you, before they submit, did you go back? Did you read everything? Check your work constantly, you know, 2, 3, 4 times. It will be important for you to remind them of those things and remind them about why it's important for them to take their time to complete the test.
One of the questions that were posed also within the chat and Q&A was as far as the notification that families will be aware of upcoming assessments. How would that be something that they'll be notified by the school, by their teachers? How would they be aware of upcoming assessments?
So the teacher should be notifying definitely the students of it. Depending on the grade level, they may notify the parents as well that testing is happening. And I would expect that more at the younger grade levels so that they can be sure that those parents are helping those students complete the assessments. If we're looking at upper elementary or older grade levels, I think with most work, teachers are probably assigning it in Google Classroom and monitoring it from there. If they are in some of the older grade levels, they might see it on the Aries grade book if the teacher's chosen to give a grade to it. So sometimes you can look there to see if a teacher is scheduling assessments. Most teachers are all maintaining a daily syllabus or syllabi or a lesson plan. So those are often shared they're all shared to the students, but often shared with the parents as well to be able to see what's coming up for that day or that week.
And so teachers could be giving assessments weekly in the form of quizzes or unit tests or chapter tests. So it's important that it's not all about the big benchmark test that happens at the end of the quarter or the trimester. Testing happens throughout the entire year. So again, asking your children about what they learned today, how did their day go? Hey, have you got any tests coming up? Do you need some help studying for that test? Those are all ways that you can get that information from your student, and just talk to them and ask them. And if they do need help studying for the test, again, a great way to know if they've mastered the content is to have them try and teach it to you, so that it gives them practice explaining their thinking. So that shows to be a very effective strategy.
One of the questions that was asked within the registration was as far as how will families be notified as far as the benchmarks or the assessments results? And as far as how would they make sense of those scores or the responses that they receive based on those tests? What would you recommend in that case?
So it would depend on what the teacher shares out with the parents and families, what score they'll see. Typically, we might see a performance level assigned to the test, which is similar to what we see on the state Smarter Balanced assessments. It may say something like exceeding standards, meeting, near or below. It may just show as a percentage correct for that test. If the teachers are going over things with the students, they may talk about standards. And so standards are content that the teachers teach to. Laura's probably got a better word to say that. The standards are what topics we cover throughout the year. And so on the test, we assign standards to certain questions that say, this question measures the student's ability to meet this standard. And so teachers may discuss that with students as a group, how they're doing on particular standards. And those are things teachers would use to go back and potentially reteach things, standards that were did not perform well across the class, or if individual students missed, they may review with those students to help make sure they get up to grade level.
Yeah, and then progress reports just went out a couple weeks ago recently. And so at the bottom of the progress report form, there's a place where you can check, I'd like to meet with my child's teacher. This is for the elementary ones. Certainly, you don't have to wait for progress reports or parent conferences that are going to happen on the 19th and the 20th or the week of the 16th of November. You should be able to contact your child's parent at any time and say, hey, can we meet for 5 minutes? I'd like to check in with you and see how my child is doing. And this should be the case for preschool through high school, where you can check in with that child's teacher. Just email and then say, hey, here's my number. Can you give me a call? I'd love to talk with you about my child and how they're doing. If you have concerns, even if you don't have concerns, it's okay to check in with your child's teacher and find out how they're doing. Sometimes it's nice to get that reassurance that they're really doing okay.
Another question that came up was as far as when you keep the tech support for those families that in some cases there might be a link that is not working appropriately, or an issue with a Chromebook or with their internet connection. What would you suggest for those families that are in need of tech support or issues with logging into the assessments?
So I would suggest you start with the teacher, especially if it's a link issue, the student's not getting in. The teacher may be able to provide the fastest response and getting the issue resolved for their student. If it needs to go beyond that, reach out to our technology department. Our help desk has an email and a call line for parents. Roberto, I don't know if you've got that handy somewhere to paste in the chat for them, but there's a number, parents you guys can call if you have issues with tech, if the Chromebook's not working, if you need internet support. We've partnered recently with Comcast Communications to help provide internet essentials to families. We've got hotspots available as well. I know we've been low on those, and so we're trying to get a lot of families signed up to Comcast so we can provide those hotspots to folks that don't meet the qualifications for the Comcast Essentials program. Yeah, Robert's got the link in there for more information on that if you're still having issues with technology.
Yeah.
And let me really quickly screen share that information so the families can see how to access that information. So hopefully you're able to see this right here. This page is found when you go into the district view page, and under students and families, there's a section that says family and community engagement. You click on that, and then that will land you into these series of different tabs. And within distance and learning for families, there's information when it comes to, in this case, what Mr. Arnold mentioned is the internet essentials. So the way that you find out whether or not you qualify is obviously you have to find out first that if Comcast is available in your area. You click on the application, you would type in your address, and it will let you know whether or not you have service in your area. If you do, what we have suggested, and you receive these messages via our text messages and email that Family Community Engagement has sent, is you will call the helpline, and it'll provide you with a code. And then with that code, it will help you to set up and create an account with Internet Essentials, which in this case will provide, in this case, the service, router, installation, and then you will just allow the application. And within the chat, I also sent information when it came to the apps portal. Let me see right here, let me click on it, which is in some ways, this is how students are going to be able to log in and take the assessments using their student account. And then I also sent information about Google Classrooms and Aries Parent Portal as far as other ways as far as accessing this information. Those have been shared within the chat. And then also just let you know, information when it comes to, in this case, about the LPAC assessments, which is being done for our English learners. Down below where it says previous phase workshops and resources, it has that information about how to, when it comes to the LPAC. You'll find information also too when it comes to SWAN math and also about iReady as an example. And then for families that need more information about the apps portal, there's also information here as well within videos as well that we have created. And is found within the Family Community Engagement website, just to let you know. And I see there's a question when it came that more of a general question when it comes to that in Internet Essentials that they qualify for the service. I think in that case, I would recommend just following up with the tech support line and then see what they suggest in that case. Okay. I don't see any more questions that were provided within the registration, also within the chat and Q&A. Are there any other suggestions or feedback or things that maybe we have omitted or things to reinforce once again with our families?
Just keep that communication open with your child's teacher and support them with however they need the support. And that may mean that just giving them encouragement during the test. You can do this. Let's just do questions 1 through 5 to start with. And then, all right, you did 1 through 5. Now let's do questions 6 through 10. You can do this. Just giving them lots of encouragement. And again, testing happens all throughout the year, not just, it's not an event. It should be ongoing. And just reminding your students that this, or your children, that this is just another way for them to show their teacher what they know. That's really what assessment is all about.
Arnold, Ms. Arnold, would you like to say some last thoughts?
I think Laura did a great job summing it up there. It is really about showing us what your child knows, and we want to be able to see their responses and have them try their best on the test. If they're, like Laura said, if they're struggling to get through it, just do a few questions at a time and then come back to it at another point. The tests aren't timed. The students can use as much time as needed. Teachers might set some windows for it to try to help their pace and move along on the test. But if they need more time, have them reach out to the teacher, and that teacher should be more than happy to schedule additional time for them to take the test.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we will conclude this webinar. We want to share the links and information and presentation to you all via email, and hopefully wish you the best with your students as they take their assessments in the past, now, or in the future. And with that, we will conclude this webinar. And thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.